Welcome to the Oracles of Eye Innovation podcast. With me today is Daria Lemann-Blumenthal, who's the CEO of NanoDrop and also the previous CEO of Belkin Vision. Daria comes to us with a great history in ophthalmology and an interesting trajectory as a female CEO from Israel.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful. I've known Daria for many years now, first with Belkin when she first started, and I was pestering her to work with us at MedDevice, and then through Belkin as a client, and now watching you take NanoDrop forward. So welcome, Daria. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Kris. Thank you for
I think it would be good for our listeners to hear your background, because it's an interesting story, and I think I was saying to you that a while back you posted some photos of you in an ophthalmology meeting when you were younger, and I knew exactly the meeting and the hotel where you were at. So with that,
Okay.
you want to explain to our
Maybe
listeners?
I'll give the audience a bit of background,
Yeah.
on the family, the childhood. So both my father's parents were ophthalmologists in Berlin before World War II. Then in 1933, they were banned from working in public hospitals because they were Jewish. So they left Germany and came to Israel by boat and asked, where do you need ophthalmologists? And they were told, oh, in Tiberias, which is near the Sea of Galilee. So that's where they went. And my father, Professor Michael Blumenthal, was born there in 1935. He also became an ophthalmologist. And as you know, a pioneering figure in ophthalmology. He developed, among other things, the mini-nuke technique for cataract surgery, which is also called the Blumenthal technique. My father also served as the president of the ESCRS in the 90s and led the largest ophthalmology department in Israel for 2 decades. I personally managed his private eye hospital for 6 years in Tal, which was the first one in Israel, until my father passed away from melanoma in 2007. So for us as a family, it wasn't just his job, it was a big part of our family life too. And every family vacation was around the ophthalmology conventions, ESCRS, ASCRS, AAO, IIIC, etc. And today, when I attend these conferences as the CEO of NanoDrops and previously Belkin Vision, I remember attending them with my father and mother and my younger brothers, Uri and Boaz. So for me, ophthalmology isn't just a career, right? It's my childhood. But I can tell you that as a child, when I thought about the future, I didn't say, oh, that's what I'm going to do. Not at all. I studied law. I'm a lawyer by profession. My mom, Nomi, was a member of parliament in Israel. We also had a house full of political discussion, and we were all very involved in public activities, guests, opinions, and basically a lot of doing. And maybe just a connection, from like my father worked as a surgeon for 2 years in Africa, in Tanzania and Malawi, where glaucoma is a major cause of blindness. I grew up with the idea that we have to find solution for eye diseases, and especially glaucoma, because he witnessed the devastating effects of the disease. And ultimately, that's exactly what I ended up doing, with Belkin Vision, where I was co-founder, was Professor Michael Belkin, and I was the CEO for 11 years. We developed the groundbreaking laser treatment for glaucoma, DSLT. And most importantly, I think it's the accessible feature. So many doctors and patients can have the treatment. And the company was acquired by Alcon in 2024 for $466 million. So for me, it's like a closure, for my father's memory, I would say.
Which is really special to think that way. Yeah, I remember meeting you and thinking, Michael Blumenthal's daughter. Wow, it's because he's such a legend. When I started in ophthalmology over 3 decades ago. At that time he was, phaco was just coming in. It was the height of moving to small incision surgery, and it was such a change, it was such a evolving environment. And it was really exciting because everybody was coming out with new techniques and everything. I was talking to a colleague the other day, and I said, I've been doing this it's my 35th year. And we're pretty much doing the same thing for cataract surgery, which is very interesting. But on the other hand, SLT, when I remember when you came out with the Voyager and the technology, and you were talking about a procedure, this game-changing procedure, and the skepticism that followed, because SLT in and of itself remains, until more recently, a lot of skepticism around that procedure and its effectiveness.
It was like the second treatment after drops.
Yeah.
And when the light study, was published at the Lancet, it was clear to everyone that laser should become a first treatment for glaucoma. But, how do you make it feasible? And DSLT fell just, in this unmet need of an accessible laser treatment for glaucoma.
Right. Because anybody who's not familiar with SLT knows that, there is a fair amount of work that's involved in positioning the patient, treatment time, et cetera. But I think there were a lot of people like Mark Latina, and others who had fought that battle for so many years. And I think probably felt vindicated when light came along and, showed that it was a safe and effective treatment. And then when DSLT launched, yeah. So it's, I'm sure it's gratifying to think that you've helped shift the field in a way.
Yeah, and what's it's interesting what you're saying, because some people think that startup companies, when they look, to the future, they think only about an exit, and of course you think about it, but I never had it, like written above my bed, right? For me, it was not the purpose. It's a means to bring the technology to as many people as possible. And we all know that Alcon, right, can do it better than a small startup company. But for an Israeli company, a small startup company, to develop the technology and conduct the clinical studies, bringing the technology to market, bypassing all the red tape in big corporations, for us, it was more natural. And the advantage for small companies, but then when you need to deploy, when you want to sell, when you want this technology to become a solution to reach as many patients as possible, the bigger players, they can do it better than you, and and then you have to exit, right?
Yeah, they have that ability to scale up and meet the demand in a quicker way than a smaller company can do, without having to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, euros,
Exactly.
whatever your currency is.
And Kris, another thing I thought about mentioning is, when a startup company feels that in a few years it will be the moment to be acquired. For us, it was at Belkin Vision when we finalized round B. We raised then $12 million. It was just amid COVID, but this was the moment when I felt that I needed to prepare the company for an exit in the coming years. And that's when I asked Andy Corley to join as the chairman of the board. I told Andy that I haven't sold a company before. I need someone to take me hand in hand through this, process and guide me. So how should I do it? So, I'm not saying that it's something that just happened. We developed technology and, you have to manage the process. But again, the purpose is to bring the technology to patients, and exit is the means to do it. So
Right.
I feel like it's a combination, right, of
Of those,
developing the technology, making it accessible and lovable by doctors and patients, and at the same time preparing the company for acquisition. So it becomes
right, and following it through to as far as you can take it,
yeah,
rather than
exactly.
I personally believe that when I meet a founder who's in the first meeting they're talking about exit and they haven't even commercialized the product yet, to me that's a sign of they're going to fail
Mhm.
in all likelihood, because they're putting too much emphasis on getting out already instead of driving the technology forward.
Right. The
And
way of thinking is like, I'm going to run this company, right? We are going to market the technology, etc. That's how you build a company.
yeah, yeah, we ask a question, and in situations like this, we ask the question, where do you see your company in 18 months? And it's interesting because excuse me, people, the right answer is to say that, we have our CE mark, we're starting to build out what our commercialization looks like. The wrong answer is to say, oh, we're going to be exiting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Be-
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And as you well know, exits are harder today. The strategics want to see data, they want to see traction. And yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, as you say, and you have to think about it and position the company, years in advance.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I learned when I founded Belkin Vision together with, of course, Professor Michael Belkin as part of Rad Biomed Accelerator. So people asked me then, when I was a very young CEO, so what's the business model of the company? And I said, why are they asking me about the business model of the company? My goodness, we still haven't proven the technology. So, today, when entrepreneurs ask me, I say, first, you have to understand whether there is a need for your product and how you will sell it. And that's first and foremost, the most important lesson I've learned in the past, I think, 13 years. When I joined NanoDrops in March last year, the first thing I did was to review the business model, refine it, work with a team to ensure it would work. And it definitely does. I'm saying that, NanoDrop's business model is not less compelling than the amazing technology. And Kris, if I may, we did mention a bit about Israeli companies.
Yeah,
And I do want to say a few words about this. A
please.
few weeks ago, I posted on LinkedIn a post about investors, who asked me
Yeah, I saw
about
that.
investing in Israeli companies. And what I believe, with all my heart, is that the factors that may cause concern are also the ones that make us, Israelis, exceptional because of those decades of, unfortunately, fighting for our existence as a country that made us and the startups that we are founding and leading extremely creative and agile. And I think that Israeli teams have this inherent risk management mentality. We don't give up. We are going
Yeah,
to work it out.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean,
like
I look.
you're actually investing in a battle-tested teams that know how to thrive under pressure.
Yeah, and I firmly, we work with a lot of Israeli companies, and I admit there was a learning curve in the beginning, and it's evolved, because I think 15 years ago, a typical Israeli CEO was much more, the mindset was much more bootstrap. We'll do it all ourselves. We're going to do it on the cheap.
Mm.
And I've seen an evolution in how they approach, a CEO with a startup out of Israel will approach the market with a much more of a worldview, and much more of a we need to do this in Europe, we need to do this in the US, and and
Yeah.
a much more
And also
holistic
the team
approach.
itself has
Yeah,
to be, from everywhere.
yeah, exactly. But the thing that shocked me, and as an American, and admittedly, you read in the news, about the disruptions and things that happen in your country. But I would be, I remember, I think it was the first or second Israeli client, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's bombs going off in the Golan Heights. They're shooting today." And I'm like, "How far are you away?" "Oh, about 10 kilometers." And you know, I'm thinking, run for cover, and they're working.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
they are.
over, when the war started 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I expected things to get quiet, but I've never seen a group of people double down and work harder in my life, because it's almost like it's a coping mechanism
Mhm.
in a way, to have that outlet that takes your mind elsewhere.
Um, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and it's something that other, startups in other parts of the world, especially in the US and Europe, don't have to cope with.
It's true. And again, this is the advantage and disadvantage, right? Obviously, we wouldn't like to live in this tension, but it
Yeah,
brings, like traits that others don't have because we are forced to live this way.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask about the the role of, or the fact that you're a female CEO. You're leading, let's face it, what is a very male dominated
Yeah.
field in ophthalmology, for better or worse. And I personally don't think it's getting that much better in terms of executive leadership. But um has that presented any challenges to you in your career, or did the fact that that you had this name, this
Mm.
legacy that came with you, did that help ease the path?
I came from a family where my father and mother raised me with a lot of confidence. I personally never felt that I was, disregarded. But I do think that women need much more presence in decision-making roles on boards, and as CEOs, as leaders. And I make a lot of effort to change this wherever I can. If we take it to the day-to-day management, when we look at women as CEOs, I think that the understanding that the team is the most important part of the company is crucial. And by the way, this is something that Andy Corley kept emphasizing to me. Now, both men and women can give their teams the attention they need, but I think that women are typically socialized to express maybe greater supportiveness.
Hmm.
And that's extremely beneficial when building a company and the company culture. And this empathy paired with hard execution, I think is a great advantage that women have. I like to call it collaborative authority.
Yeah.
Like Kris, I personally love people. For me, it's natural, and I cherish
Mm.
relationships. It's part of me. Overall, I think it contributed a lot to me and to my career and to the companies I've been leading. Um, I'm also a very open person. I like to
Mm.
hear others and share. I have 5 kids, not something that I try to hide or downplay, but I'm rather very proud of. And I think that it helps because people connect and you
Mm.
bring your full self to the office, me personally, and this openness and sharing also open up the people you work with. I can speak with Daria about what's bothering me, what I need, and how we can improve. Um, and, Kris, if I may take advantage of this
Hmm.
platform, what I would tell other women is that you can definitely have a meaningful career, but you need a lot of support, on the home front from your partner, your kids, your parents, your whole family, and you need to outsource many of the household tasks so that you can focus on work and making things happen. Leading a startup is basically like raising another kid. That's how I look at it, because I spend a lot of time at work and I love what I'm doing. Yeah, so it's like raising a baby.
Yes, yes. And sometimes they get colicky and they're very fuzzy. And then you think, ugh. Yeah, it very much is. And right before I got on with you, we do in France, you have, if a company is over 11 people, you have to have what's called a committee socioeconomic, basically an employee committee. And we do an annual team survey as part of ISO 1345. You have to benchmark. And it had an interesting experience because our willingness to recommend, we have a primarily French team, our willingness to recommend is 80%. Fine. My primarily American board said, "Oh, this is not good. What is wrong?" And I had to go back and say, stop thinking like an American, think about a French person. French people are never satisfied. They always want to raise the bar. And I was saying I was repeating the story to the committee this morning, and they said, I think it was a great compliment, not to pat myself on the back, but they said, we have a very good environment here. And especially when they consider other companies where they've been.
Yeah. For me, for the team to come to work and feel, we came to the office and it's like our second home, right? That's what I want them to feel, that it's great to come to work. It's that they love the people they work with, they love what they are doing. And for now, I think it works well.
Yeah, and that's I think, if you can do that and you can walk out of your office at night and know that, it was a good day, people were smiling, laughing, doing their work, working hard, but there's that atmosphere, then I consider that a good day.
I agree. I'm totally with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently also, I mean, we're having a baby boom the first 6 months of the year, and somebody told me that that's a very good sign of a healthy company as well.
Nice.
Deal with the maternity leaves, and then another question that I wanted to bring up is working with ophthalmologist inventors, and what are the unique challenges of doing that? Because you're on your second company now that's been created by an ophthalmologist, Davis Mejia, who is a wonderful anterior segment surgeon, and then Michael Belkin before with Belkin Vision. What are the unique challenges of going into a startup that is set up that way?
Yeah. I think that's something I learned when working with Professor Belkin. He was 70 years old when we established Belkin Vision. You see many startups don't succeed because of poor relationship between the founders. You have the doctor in medical device startups, the founders are usually doctors who cannot let go and who don't let the business partner, lead the company. Professor Belkin, he had a lot of experience, and he always told me, it's your call. I'm going to contribute whatever I can on the medical and clinical side, but I'm not interfering with the business or financing matters. And of course, when he could, he would connect me with potential investors, but then he would give me a free hand in steering the ship. So now at NanoDrop's, working with Professor Smadja, who is an amazing person and a great refractive surgeon. When I started in March last year, I told him, David, in 6 months from now, you're going to have a different life because you will focus on what you are best at, which is refractive surgery. and refractive innovation. So yeah, I think that the minute you understand what I'm good at, what I want to do, and what the other, your partner, is good at, that's building a healthy relationship, and that's how you can succeed.
In terms of encouraging, I mean, I gather you've been lucky with Professor Belkin and Professor Smezha. What would be the advice for the CEO, the executive CEO who's coming in and up, the founder doesn't, or the inventor doesn't necessarily want to step away?
Yeah. I think this is something that has to be clarified, before you start to work together, right? So you have to set expectations beforehand. So it's very clear who is responsible for what. For me, it worked well. And I think it's, in many things in life, you have to set expectations. Now, if it doesn't work, you have to solve it, whether, with people who know both of you and can mitigate this, misunderstanding, etc. But just to allocate the responsibilities. Of course, you hear, opinions of, the opinions of each other. But bottom line, there's one leader,
Yep.
to the company.
And how much does the selection of your board of directors matter? You mentioned bringing Andy in to be the chairman of the board. How much, when you were putting the board together, were you thinking strategically about how that board's going to help you build the company, move you to an exit?
Yeah, you have to, but it's not always, in your control, because most of the times the board members are actually, the major shareholders, investors.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to work with great people on my board. But I did insist on bringing an industry expert to the board, so that there is a link to the ophthalmic community. And today at NanoDrops, it's exactly the same. We have a very good board. I still have, we have to work on adding some more female board members, that's for sure. But we also have, a industry expert, and you have to build the board and so it helps the CEO, the board help the company.
Yeah.
Again, you're always, you're not, it's not only you as the leader here, right? Or I would say, Kris, maybe it's not only up to you how the board would look, but I think you have a lot of influence, but it takes time. It takes time to shape the board, as a board that really support the management, right? The CEO,
Yes.
and very proactive in helping the company improve and going to the right direction.
Yeah. To me, that's critical. And I think too often, especially in this industry, people pick board members because of how well they're known. And now, granted, I, have board members that are very well known. But they're also people who roll up their sleeves and get to work and
Exactly
will challenge me, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, I agree.
There was one more question I wanted to ask you, and of course I'm kind of drawing a blank. But I guess, to sum things up, what, if somebody's listening to this who's got an idea, is taking the steps to create a startup,
Mhm.
what are the top 3, 4 things that you must have
Yeah.
in that early stage company?
Okay, so first we mentioned you should identify the need, right? It has to work out when the product is in the market. Someone has to need it, someone has to pay for it. So this is something you have to, and all the rest, the hopefully the technology, biology, whatever, will work out, given that it would work out. That's one. Second, you have to be very persistent, very persistent, don't lose hope because there are a lot of unknowns and difficult moments in the life cycle of a startup company. So just persist. Another thing is, I think that to lead a startup company, to take it forward, you need to be in the front. You need to love people and relationships. For those who prefer to be at the back office, it's totally fine. A lot of engineers and scientists, they don't necessarily like the stage, I would say. And it's totally fine. But for the CEO, this, relationships and the ability to speak, to have conversations and related, it's crucial. So,
Yep.
so that's another thing I think is important. And Kris, if I may, I would like to say a few words about NanoDrops because I think not a
Oh, yes,
lot
of
of
course.
people, heard about the company. And I know the name is a bit deceiving, because NanoDrops is a medical device company. The drops are actually the vehicle to bring the
Right.
nanoparticles to the eye. So for those, in the audience who are curious, just to say that we are developing a totally different concept for vision correction. We are creating and drawing an optical pattern on the cornea to allow presbyopes to read without glasses. And it differentiates from other technologies because it's a long-lasting solution for presbyopia, and yet it's reversible. We are creating a new focal point without compromising distance vision. And the target market is the pre-cataract adults who want an elegant solution to restore their near vision. And, the whole value proposition is outstanding. And you asked me just now about, startup companies and how you start them. And when I joined NanoDrops a year ago, the company was R&D only, which is natural. But companies cannot succeed without business and financial leadership. So when I came in, I brought our former CFO at Belkin Vision, Daria Lemann-Blumenthal, because business and finance must go hand in hand with R&D and clinical development. And I think this is a very important takeaway, for those who are thinking about starting a startup company.
And with NanoDrop, you because you're coming, you're in development at a time when there's an increasing number of presbyopia drops, which are pharmaceutical products on the market. So far, not with a great deal of success. And so in my experience, there's a high degree of skepticism about whether a product of this nature can actually be used to successfully, treat presbyopia. So I'm sure that you've heard that question a few times now. So how do you counter that? How do you explain why NanoDrop is different?
First of all, I think that it's great that people, I don't like to say patients because I don't think that presbyopes are patients, but that's how we call presbyopes. But I think that the fact that people have a lot of alternatives is great. because we are so different. And for each of us, something else would be the right solution. So I'm very happy about what's happening in the presbyopia market, because it just shows that there is a need, that there is a market, that people need a solution. Now, what differentiates NanoDrops is, one, we are a long-lasting solution. We don't put inlays. We are not reshaping the cornea. The cornea remains, with its integrity. We are drawing in the epithelium in a very unique way, a pattern which is actually our secret sauce. We took a concept from physics, the Fresnel zone plate concept, and we implement it in ophthalmology. And this is a new idea, a new technology in ophthalmology. It's not a me too. It's something totally new. So I'm very proud to be part of this invention and to work together, with the team. So that's NanoDrops. It's a long-lasting solution. You don't have to deal with this on a daily basis. And on the other hand, it's also reversible. So you're not committed, when you like it, great. But let's say you had the procedure when you were 60, and then you are 68 and you want to undergo, you need a cataract surgery. You can restart from fresh. And it will not interfere with all the, measurements, etc. So we are addressing this age, the pre-cataract period, when patients don't want invasive surgery, like lens replacement. I'm 51. I don't want a lens replacement. I want something that would help me read, without changing my natural lens. So this is more or less the market the audience we are targeting.
Okay.
We're 45 to 65 before they have cataract, but when they are, presbyopes and they want to get rid of the reading glasses.
Yep. And this will work for emmetropes as well as people who are hyperopic or myopic, or is it just emmetropes? So
we're the first, our technology can treat myopia, astigmatism, etc. But we chose to focus on presbyopia first.
Okay.
And we are targeting plano presbyopes, so patients who see very well to distance. But suddenly, if you look on those post-LASIK patients, for example, they had LASIK when they were 25, 30, and now they're 45, 50, and they need reading glasses. Or people who are not used to wear glasses at all, and suddenly, at the age of 50, they need reading glasses, and they get crazy about it. So, that's exactly. So that's the patients, the people we are targeting, and want to provide them with a great solution.
So watch this space, because you're still very much early in development, right?
Yeah, we are just starting our first human studies.
That's amazing.
Yeah, very exciting.
All right. Well, Daria, thank you so much for joining us on the Oracles of Eye Innovation podcast today. It was a great chat.
For having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Oracles of Eye Innovation podcast. If you have an idea for an upcoming podcast or would like to be interviewed, please contact us at the email address in the podcast show notes. Until next time, I'm your host, Kris Morrill.